At 3:11 a.m., the delivery room fell quiet for one beat. Then our baby cried, like the city finally told the truth. A nurse smiled at me, the way people smile at men holding their breath, and said, "Dad, we need your blood type for the chart." I said, "O negative." She glanced at the screen, then at my wristband, then at the baby's little card where someone had scrawled A positive. Most pairs work. That pair could work. It wasn't that. It was the next question. Any family history of G6PD deficiency or hemophilia on your side? She asked. I shook my head. The resident, a woman with the calm of a lighthouse, said gently, "The baby's enzyme screen is throwing a flag. We'll run confirmatory labs." She looked to my wife. My wife looked at the wall. Phones light different parts of a room. Her sister's lit up first, then her mother's, then her best friend's, then hers. A name flashed across her screen with the kind of custom vibration people pretend they don't notice. She flipped her phone face down. Under the thin blanket, our baby kept practicing being alive. We didn't have time to sit in the shock. The nurse rolled the bassinet toward the NICU. My wife looked at me like a cliff looks at the ocean, eroded by something it once loved. "He's on his way," she said. "Who is?" I asked, though I already knew. "My mentor," she said. And the room didn't know whether to laugh or applaud or call the police. The word hung there, wobbling on a string of denial. 15 years of marriage, and I had become the margins. The baby cried once, and I followed the cry like it owed me money. Outside the NICU doors, our families collected like witnesses at a train crossing, unsure whether to move or hold their breath. Her mother craned her neck for someone she'd only met on social media. My mother squeezed my elbow the way she did before school plays when I was 10, and afraid of forgetting my one line. Her sister Elena looked at me and saw more than offense. The neonatologist spoke fast and plain. "We think this is G6PD deficiency. It's common, manageable. It means certain triggers can cause hemolysis. We need the biological father's history for a couple of call-outs and, depending on the labs, possibly a transfusion. Dad, are you certain about O negative?" I nodded, the kind of nod that feels like you're stapling your face to your skull. "Yes." "Then we may request blood from a matched donor list. We'll also need legal consent if there's a question of paternity on the birth certificate," she said, careful with the word that blows rooms apart. Every head turned toward me in the exact same second, as if a choreographer had counted them in. Not toward him. He hadn't arrived. Not even toward my wife. Toward me? "So I said, and finished the sentence in my head. "So I lead, or I break. Give us history, get us donors, keep the outside calm," the neonatologist said, like she'd known me for years. "We'll do our part." I stepped into the hallway and dialed a number I hadn't used since a week in July, when the blood bank called us volunteers angels. And we laughed because we were just people with calendars. "Tony," I said when he answered. "I need 4 O negatives, 2 A positives, all within the window, no aspirin in the last 48, and one person who can drive in 10 minutes. Hospital? NICU. He didn't ask for the story behind the story. "Text me the address," he said. "We'll be there." I went back in. He came in. You could tell by the air. Men with money carry it the way some people carry perfume. He shook hands like contracts close themselves. Someone said his name like it would open a door. He didn't look at me. He looked at the baby, then at my wife, then at the neonatologist. "I'm the mentor," he said, flinching at his own lie. "I'm here to help." The doctor nodded at the forms. "We'll need medical history and consent from the legal spouse. If paternity is in question, We note it and proceed with life-saving care under the mother's consent and the hospital's policy. No one here is waiting on a headline. He blinked at legal spouse. He signed nothing. I signed for the things that needed signing. The nurse took my pen like it might be the last one on earth. Our baby's fingers wrapped around my pinky like a test I didn't want to fail. I told the small person a small truth. You didn't ask for any of this, I whispered. I'll handle the nouns. You just do the breathing. He breathed. I handled. Elena found me in the family room, where laminated posters explain how to wash your hands as if it were breaking news. She handed me a cup of coffee so hot it argued with the air. He's not giving history, she said. He says he'll coordinate his team. I told him this isn't a board meeting. Thanks for the coffee, I said, which in our dialect meant thank you for not treating me like furniture. He coached her into calling him a mentor, Elena said, voice low and flat. She repeated it until it became a policy. Some policies are lies that look good on letterhead. She loves him, I said. And the sentence broke something clean in my chest. It's one thing to be betrayed. It's another to name it correctly. She loved a promotion, Elena said. Different animal. Tony arrived with 2 firefighters in jackets that smelled like midnight and 1 nurse who had just finished a 12 and still said yes. The charge nurse took their IDs and stuck green stickers on them like a bouncer for angels. We watched the neonatologist move with a cadence that made sense. Labs, fluids, lights. Newborn skin glows like it knows mercy. Dad, the nurse said to me, and that word did something to my spine. I'll only know the name of when I'm old. We'll be moving to phototherapy. We'll monitor bilirubin every 2 hours. If levels climb, we proceed with exchange transfusion. Your donors are on deck. He hovered. He tried to speak the language of calm without the accent of humility. If you need private space, my team can... The only team right now wears scrubs, the neonatologist said, not unkindly. My mother approached him with the Midwestern weapon known as politeness. Do you have children? She asked. He said, I have assets. And the sentence told me everything I needed about the last 2 years and the next 2 hours. At 5:02 a.m., the numbers rose in that way numbers do when they want you to learn how helpless feels. We moved to the small procedure room that looks like a spaceship designed by pragmatists. I stood behind glass with Elena and watched the slow exchange, red and patient. The kind of medicine that looks like faith in action. My wife sat in a chair, arms folded around herself like the answer key to a test she didn't want to grade. He paced like men do when they're used to being the emergency. The nurse looked at me between steps, eyes steady above her mask. You okay? No, and yes, I said. No because of everything. Yes because of you. That's the right order, she said, and went back to work. When it was done, the room exhaled. The baby's color turned from worry to possibility. The monitor quieted, accepting our apology. The neonatologist peeled off her gloves and did the thing I wish more people learned. She told us what would happen next in a sentence everyone could hold. He's stable. We'll keep him under lights. We'll watch him breathe like it's our job. Because it is. He tried again. I need assurance we'll have privacy, he said. Our situation is delicate. The only situation I care about is that kid, I said, and even I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. The rest can wait in the hallway with your cologne. Her mother finally looked at me as if I were visible. What do we write on the birth certificate? She asked, as if our story had ever been a form. No one writes anything today, Elena said. You put TBD where the law allows it, and you write alive where the heart demands it. At 6:13, a nurse with a voice like Sunday brought me a folded paper towel with a note on it. "From the charge nurse," she said. It read, "You were steady when the room wasn't. Not everyone is." I put it in my wallet behind my transit card, where I keep proof that the mundane saves lives. He cleared his throat. He hated being a noun when the verbs didn't need him. "We'll be in touch," he told my wife, like a closing bell. "You will," Elena said. "With your lawyer." He left. The room got lighter by a weight you can't measure. My wife stared at the baby under the blue glow and whispered something I couldn't hear. It might have been a prayer. It might have been a calculation. I didn't go closer to find out. I stood where the steady people stand, next to the nurses, and learned the names of the machines that had decided to let us keep our morning. When the sun remembered its job and climbed up the hospital blinds, the social worker arrived with a folder and a tone like a seatbelt click. "I'm here to help with documents," she said. "Birth certificate, insurance, paternity questions if they exist. We do this part gently." Exist is a word that breaks and builds in the same moment. My wife answered the easy questions. Name, address, the middle name she had picked from a list she'd kept in her phone for a decade. When the form reached father, the pen hesitated like a bird on a wire. "We can leave this blank for now," the social worker said. "It's not a moral statement. It's a legal one. We'll attach a note that paternity is under review. You're married, so there's a presumption. But the hospital can also note genetic uncertainty to protect the child's care. Our job is the child." She slid a separate page toward me. "As the spouse, you can consent for routine care. For ongoing decisions, we will consider current involvement and best interest. You've been present and active. For now, you're the number we call." For now is a cliff that looks like a porch if you stand far enough away. I signed. I gave insurance details that came with a premium I hated and loved. I added emergency contacts. My mother, Elena, because she had the voice people listen to when they're scared. The social worker nodded like we'd placed sandbags in the right places. The corridor turned to traffic. People brought flowers as if scent could restructure a family. Someone posted a carefully cropped photo of a tiny hand and wrote, "Blessed," which is the internet's way of pretending grief has no seat at the table. I turned my phone to airplane mode and learned the schedules of the NICU like a new alphabet. Mid-morning, a hospital attorney in a blazer that had met more coffee than sunlight asked to speak with me. "There may be a request to limit your access," she said, reading an email she didn't like. "Our position is that your presence has benefited care. Unless there's a legal order, we're not changing anything today." "Who requested?" I asked. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Elena brought me a breakfast burrito and the look people get when the truth stops asking permission. "You don't have to be the hero," she said. "I know," I said. "You're still being one," she said. And I tried not to cry because hospitals already have enough fluids to manage. By afternoon, our baby's numbers behaved like we were teaching them manners. The neonatologist smiled with her eyes. "He's a strong kid," she said. "You can tell when they decide to stay." Decide to stay. The phrase tucked itself into a part of my chest I thought had moved out. My wife and I finally spoke alone in a room where the chairs squeaked like they were trying not to. "I didn't plan this," she said. "Nobody plans their disaster," I said. "They just plan their denial." "He said he'd leave her," she said. "He didn't sign a consent form," I said. "That's the only sentence I care about today." She looked small and sharp at once, like a paper cut. "Do you hate me?" I'm tired, I said. Tired is louder than hate. I don't know if that helped. I only know she didn't argue. At 4, my mother took my place by the isolette so I could go home to shower. On my way out, the doorman recognized my face from 10,000 comings and goings and said, "Congratulations," like he was testing if the words still fit. "The elevator's been sticking again," he added, because people who care tell you when things might break. On my stoop, a neighbor asked if the baby looked like me. I said he looked like himself. I sat on the edge of the tub and let water make a plan for my shoulders. In the mirror, I looked like a man who had been told 2 stories at once and had sworn not to make either of them about himself. Back at the hospital, a small crowd had gathered in the waiting area. Her parents, my mother praying without moving her lips, a man in a suit who pretended to study a vending machine like it owed him interest. The nurse at the desk looked at me. "Dad," she said, "we need to talk signatures for his discharge plan when it's time." Dad. The room heard it. So did he. The mentor excused himself to take a call. The hallway swallowed him like a lesson. That night, when the NICU dimmed, Elena stood beside me and didn't say anything for a whole minute. That minute felt like medicine. "Do you want a lawyer?" she asked finally. "I want a manual," I said. "Same thing, if you pick the right one," she said. "I know someone who does family law without turning people into weapons." I nodded. "Call her." We didn't plot revenge. We plotted survival. Sometimes the noblest thing you do is pick the smaller word. The hearing for temporary orders landed 2 weeks later in a courtroom where the windows looked tired of being windows. Our baby had been home for 3 days by then, under a schedule that made time a circle. He slept like he trusted us, because babies don't know the nouns yet. My lawyer, a woman named Sloan who wore flats and clarity, arranged papers like chess. The other side arrived late, as if lateness could substitute for leverage. He didn't look at me, and I preferred it that way. My wife looked at the floor. Elena sat behind me like a lighthouse you can carry. The judge read the file long enough to teach silence a new trick. We have a healthy infant, a mother, a husband, and a man claiming to be a mentor who appears in photos from prenatal appointments, she said like she was reading a weather report we'd all tried to ignore. We also have messages that suggest a relationship inconsistent with mentorship. No one shifted. Air did. "We will establish paternity in due course," the judge continued. "Until then, custody defaults to the mother. Decision-making for medical care includes the spouse who has been acting in the best interest of the child, unless there is evidence to the contrary. Access for any third party will be supervised and scheduled to avoid conflict in the hospital environment. The court expects adult behavior. I will not tell you twice. Adult behavior." I wanted to applaud. Sloan rose. "Your Honor, we ask to maintain my client's role as the primary emergency contact and a co-signer for medical decisions pending paternity, as he has been acting in that capacity since birth." "Granted," the judge said without drama. She turned to the other table. "Do you object?" The lawyer opposite cleared his throat. "We'd like to ensure the child's privacy in public postings and media mentions given my client's profile." Sloan didn't look at me. She didn't need to. "We are not the ones posting," she said. "We are the ones changing diapers." "Granted," the judge said again. "No posting the child's face. No discussion of the case for clicks. If you must post, post about your coffee." Afterward, in the slush of the hallway, he approached like someone who thinks approaching is a gift. "This isn't personal," he said. "Everything about a baby is personal," I said, and walked away. That evening, The apartment felt like the last page of a book written by a stranger. My mother took the baby so I could nap. Sleep did what sleep does when it senses grief. It built me a dream that was only a list. Diapers, wipes, pediatrician at 9:40, lawyer call at 1, donor thank you texts, groceries. Somewhere between wipes and lawyer, the dream became a story again, and I was in a hospital room. Only it was empty, and I was the machine. When I woke up, there was a message from Elena. "You okay?" I typed a thing and erased it. I typed another and erased that one too. Then I typed, "I'm choosing verbs." She replied, "Good. Verbs carry babies across bridges." At 2:11 a.m., because sometimes refuse to change outfits, the smart lock texted my phone that the door had opened. My mother was asleep in the guest room. My wife had a key. The baby squeaked like a hinge. I went to the living room. She stood there with a bag and eyes that had chosen neither sleep nor honesty. "I can't do this," she said. "Do what?" "Live a split screen," she said. "Everyone knows. My phone is a court." "The court was today," I said. "I mean, the court of people who think they know how to live your life better than you." "People love trials where they can be the jury," I said. She put the bag down. "I need you to hate me," she said. "It's easier." "I don't have time to hate you," I said. "There's a feed to sterilize." She laughed, which hurt us both. Then she cried, which only hurt her. "He says I'm being manipulated," she said. "By you. By your calm." "Tell him calm is a choice you buy with receipts," I said. "And diapers." She slept on the couch. I slept in the chair beside the bassinet, because the chair had already learned how to forgive my spine. At dawn, the baby decided to start a new day, like a man who's never met regret. I changed a diaper, warmed a bottle, whispered the only prayer I own: steady, steady, steady. By breakfast, Elena texted, "I'm at the door with bagels. Don't argue." She came in like a new policy and filled our kitchen with the smell of competence. She wiped the counter because wiping counters is what saves countries. She didn't look at the couch. She looked at the baby and the coffee and me. "You're going to make it," she said. "It's not going to be pretty, but pretty is for centerpieces." "Centerpieces are nice," I said. "So are babies who breathe," she said. "Pick one." In the days that followed, my life shrank to the size of a schedule and grew to the size of a purpose. I learned the inventory of our apartment the way a quartermaster loves a list. Bottles here, burp cloths there, a whiteboard with 2 columns, must, later. The must column won the week. Sloan filed for divorce with the kind of language that doesn't carry gasoline. No accusations on Instagram, no names for strangers to repeat, just dates, facts, and a plan that made a runway out of a crater. Elena stopped by with meals packaged like hope. My mother prayed into the sink the way some people sing. My wife existed like weather, sometimes clear, sometimes coming in sideways. She went to a therapist whose office had the kind of chairs that make you believe in chairs. She stopped posting. She started listening. She did not say, "I'm sorry," in the way people practice it in the mirror. She said it like a person who wanted to build a small bridge with her hands and hoped the river would be kind. The paternity test moved at the speed of institutions. Deliberate, unromantic. He delayed twice for reasons that sounded like calendar invites. The judge said the third delay would be contempt. He found time. On a Tuesday that smelled like wet gloves, the pediatrician told me our baby was thriving. "He likes order," she said. "Babies learn from whoever shows up." That night, the power flickered in our building in a way that made my shoulders remember that lurch from the hospital. The hall lights died, came back, The baby slept through it. I didn't. I checked the flashlight batteries because men like me cling to small verbs when the big nouns are rude. At 9:47, Elena's name lit up my phone. "We need a plan for the christening," she said, using the family's word for a welcoming, even though religion had been complicated for us since college. "My parents want a host. He wants to attend." "Then we need name cards," I said. "You're joking." "I'm not," I said. "If he's there, we control the room. We make a list. We put the baby at the center, and we let the adults orbit like they're grateful to be allowed near." "You're very good at this," she said. "I've had practice," I said, "in other rooms, with worse lighting." We wrote a plan that accounted for every predictable disaster. Which is to say, we wrote a plan that would survive 3 unpredictable ones. The seating chart placed him far enough to be polite and close enough to obey social gravity. The microphone would be held by Elena or no one. The only speech would be a welcome and a reading of the names of the nurses and donors who had moved the first night from dark to morning. When the day came, the hall smelled like lilies because people like to pretend scent can dress a wound. The baby wore a simple white onesie because he didn't need armor. Family formed circles that looked like Venn diagrams of regret and hope. He arrived with a smile that didn't suspect scarcity. He nodded at me, the way men nod when they can't shake hands without catching consequences. Elena began, the way a person begins who knows that beginning is half the battle. "Thank you for loving this child," she said. "Today is about gratitude." She read the nurses' names like a liturgy, and the firefighters' names like a roster for a team that never asks for jerseys. Halfway through, a place card at the head table flipped over like a coin someone had been fidgeting with. Conversations dipped a fraction. The maitre d' steadied it, then paused. The card had no name on the other side. It was just blank, like a dare. He looked at me, a question in his eyebrows. I shook my head. He left it blank. My wife took the baby and kissed his forehead with the kind of ownership that isn't legal or genetic, just human. Then she handed him to me in front of everyone, and a hush fell like something expensive dropping. I didn't make a speech. I held the child steady. He steadied me back. If there was drama, it stayed tucked inside people who carry it like a habit. After cake, someone asked for a toast. Elena said no. The room obeyed her because competence carries more authority than wealth if you let it. He moved toward the mic anyway, and the maitre d' turned down the volume with a technical difficulty that wasn't. We made it to the end without headlines. That shouldn't feel like victory, and yet it did. The paternity result arrived on a Wednesday, shaped like a comma. Sloane called, voice level. "It's not yours," she said, and the sentence landed like a fact and a funeral. "I know," I said. "You knew," she corrected. "Now it's true." We agreed to file an amended certificate. We agreed I would remain the emergency contact until a custody schedule made less sense. We agreed to agree where agreeing kept the baby warm. My wife cried in a way that didn't need witnesses. I took the bassinet for a long walk around the block. He called once to ask about visitation. I told him to go through counsel. He said he wanted to be civil. I said civility starts with showing up when the blood bank calls. He said he didn't mean that kind of showing up. I hung up because sometimes verbs are leaving a conversation. Elena came over with soup and a quart of something labeled stew of the women in my office. We ate on the floor because floors don't pretend to be anything they're not. "You don't have to stay in this proximity forever," she said. "You can move into a future where this is a chapter, not the table of contents." "There's a kid," I said. "Chapters grow legs when you ignore them." The next week, The bank hosted a gala because banks do that. He stood on stage and spoke about resilience. The speeches were posted. The comments were kind. He had a way with nouns when microphones were nearby. I scrolled past, then scrolled back, then threw my phone onto the couch like it had caused the flood. At 2:11 a.m., because the universe loves a callback. The baby coughed the kind of cough that makes time stop and family names meaningless. He tightened, then loosed. I counted breaths like I was doing math for my life. We drove to the ER in 15 minutes that felt like a trial. The doctor called it bronchiolitis and said we'd be okay. We were. In the waiting room, a TV played footage of a storm in a state we've never visited. People on the screen sandbagged their doorways, while reporters narrated like the wind could be made reasonable. Elena texted, "Do you need me?" I typed, "No." Then, "Yes, for tomorrow." She showed up at dawn with coffee and a list titled, "Things We Can Control." The list had 8 items. Half were boring. The boring ones saved us. Humidifier, saline drops. Tiny suction thing I had to watch a video to forgive. Wash hands like a religion. Memory bends around the small rituals that keep a person alive. I learned to love the suction thing because it made him breathe easier. I learned to hate my phone less because it summoned videos that taught me to be a mammal with a job. 2 days later, he was better. 2 weeks later, the court finalized temporary custody. Mother primary, me with specified access and medical decision input if needed. The biological father with supervised visitation pending a longer plan. The judge looked at me and said, "You've conducted yourself with restraint. Keep that up." I wanted to tell her restraint was the only instrument I knew how to play in this orchestra. People kept asking how I was. I started answering, "I'm busy," because busy is sometimes the most honest way to say broken and building at once. On a Sunday, Elena and I took the baby to the park. Leaves negotiated with wind in the language trees use. She watched me watch him. "You know you're allowed to have a life," she said. "I have one," I said, and pointed to the stroller. "It just fits in smaller containers now." "Some containers are smarter than mansions," she said. The way she looked at me was not how someone looks at their sister's ex by accident. We didn't call it anything. We put a blanket down and built a small republic out of snacks. Divorce is paperwork coded in grief. Sloan navigated the forms like a river pilot. My wife and I divided furniture without turning it into a scoreboard. She moved into a sublet with a lease that looked temporary, even though nothing ever is. He remained a shadow with a schedule, present when supervised, absent in ways schedules can't fix. The baby learned to grip, to roll, to laugh at jokes that weren't jokes so much as sounds people make when they want the world to be less cruel. He started to know my voice like a road he can walk in the dark. We built routines with the gravity of rituals. Bath, book, breathe, bless. Elena and I kept a distance that respected nouns we hadn't changed yet. We texted at friendly hours about unromantic things, wipes, work, how to freeze soup without making a flavor crime. Then, one night, the elevator stuck between floors with us in it and the baby asleep on my chest. It hummed like doubt. Elena pressed the intercom, voice steady. "We're between 8 and 9, she said. "We have an infant. No one panics." I tapped the panel the way you tap a shoulder. "We're okay," I told the air. The air believed me. The baby sighed, and the sound felt like the end of a sentence that had taken years to write. The building engineer's voice crackled. "We've got you. 10 minutes. "Name?" I asked through the speaker. "Old habits." "Luis," he said. "Luis," I repeated because names make rooms behave. "You've got this." We waited. 10 minutes became 8, then 5. The cab shuddered, then lowered like a person sitting down carefully. The doors opened onto a hallway that looked like a promise. We stepped out, and the engineer grinned like he'd caught a fish. "You look familiar," he said to me. "I hold babies and make lists," I said. "That's it," he said, as if that were a profession he admired. Elena touched my elbow like it was a yes. Later, when the baby slept for real and the city turned down its volume, she stayed for tea. We talked about music we liked when we were 20 and about recipes we pretend are hard so we can feel skilled when we make them. The air between us wasn't complicated. It was careful. "You were the only person in that room the night he was born who didn't make it about themselves," she said, out of nowhere and exactly on time. That's what terrified her. It's what steadied me. "I'm not auditioning," I said, and smiled. "I know," she said. "That's why it matters." We didn't kiss. We didn't ruin stillness with appetite. We cleaned the little kitchen, and she left with a wave that had the audacity to be normal. Somewhere on the internet, someone wrote a think piece about infidelity and men who stay calm and whether calm is masculine or just adult. I didn't read it. I was busy changing a diaper. The diaper made its own argument for adulthood. When the final decree arrived, it fit in an envelope that felt too thin for what it contained. I held it like a passport and a receipt. My mother hugged me, then hugged the baby, then hugged Elena, because she hugs by ecosystem. We ordered pizza, because pizza is how American households declare treaties. He sent a message through council asking for a future free of hostility. Sloan sent back one sentence that belonged in a museum. "Hostility leaves when accountability arrives." I printed it and put it on the fridge behind a drawing of a son the baby hadn't made, but someday would. A year from the night the baby's first cry made liars of a lot of adults. We celebrated a birthday in a backyard where the grill was the only thing allowed to smoke. There were balloons, but not the kind that can leave a planet. There was cake, but the kind that forgives mess. There were two families, learning to be one community without pretending to be one family. My wife came with a gift that made sense for a child and a card that made sense for a courtroom. She had lines on her face you earn by choosing harder truths. He didn't come. He had a meeting or a mirror. Elena set up a table with photo prints from the year. A hand reaching for a spoon, a mouth learning how to tell the day it's okay to begin. A pair of eyes that looked like whatever word means future without making promises. She handed me a picture of me asleep on the couch, the baby asleep on my chest, a bottle on the table, a list on the whiteboard that just said, "Breathe, that's my favorite," she said. "Mine too," I said, and didn't say the rest of it out loud. The baby saved me when I thought I was saving him. People sang badly. The baby smashed cake into a new kingdom. My mother cried in the way that waters plants. Elena laughed in the way that keeps rooms warm. The neighbor from downstairs stopped by with a gift card and a story about a dog. The doorman texted happy birthday because communities are just long text threads with casseroles. At sunset, my wife asked if she could speak to me alone. We went to the front stoop where cigarettes used to get smoked in other lives. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I'm asking if we can be the version of ourselves that lets him grow without collecting our debts." "We can," I said. "It'll cost us pride. Pride is expensive. We can afford it if we stop buying other things." She nodded. "Thank you," she said. "For the night in the hospital. For the lists. For not telling the internet what I did." "I didn't protect you," I said. "I protected the baby from a story he didn't write." "That's better," she said. And she was right. Later, When the yard was only fireflies and the sound of a city forgiving itself for being loud, Elena handed me a small envelope. Inside was a place card, the blank one from the head table at the welcoming. On the back she'd written a single word in neat, stubborn letters: steady. "That's your seat," she said, "wherever you go." I put the card in my wallet behind the note from the NICU nurse. I don't collect trophies. I collect receipts. If you're here for a revenge speech, I don't have one. I have a child who breathes and a life that makes fewer excuses. I have a story in which the worst night made me more precise. Precision is how you build tenderness that doesn't wobble when the wind changes. The birth exposed the affair. The affair exposed the adults. The family turned to me, so I turned to the baby and asked what needed doing. He answered by sleeping. I answered by staying. You'll ask, do I love Elena? I'll answer the way the year taught me to answer everything, with verbs. We cook, we walk, we share pickups and drop-offs, and the kind of jokes tired people invent to feel clever and alive. We keep the baby in the center and ourselves at the edges until the edges feel like home. If you need an ending, here's mine. I tuck him in, I check the batteries in the flashlight, I text the donors on the anniversary of that night to say thank you, and I put the wallet back together with the 2 small papers that made me a grown-up. Then I sit on the stoop and let the air ask nothing of me for 5 whole minutes. 1 word in the comments, mercy or measure. No names, just verbs.